Hello everybody, Dave Neal here, and in this episode I'm talking about Jason Tartick and his podcast Trading Secrets, which discusses the behind-the-scenes finances of being an influencer, specifically regarding Bachelor Nation. Jason Tartick explains in his podcast that I'm about to recap for you guys how much money he makes on an Instagram post, how much he makes on an Instagram story, which sponsors have offered him big money, and how he can maximize how much money he makes. So there's a lot of really good information here. If you haven't already, I suggest listening to his podcast. Last episode, he had Dean Unglert on. Dean was a contestant in Bachelor in Paradise and Bachelorette, and Dean talked very candidly about debt, how much money he makes from different posts, how much money he makes made on Bachelor in Paradise, and very interesting stuff. One of Jason's sort of core missions for the podcast is to destigmatize that weird feeling we get when we talk about finances. A lot of times employers say never talk about your finances with anyone else you work with, and that's kind of their way of holding control over you, and that's kind of their way of keeping you from better negotiating. So by sharing a lot of these secrets, he's actually helping you and I out, helping us destigmatize and get more power to the employer. And also he talks about the corporate sort of handcuffs he had, the way that companies will use like health insurance to hold you around in your retirement and this and that. And as we move to a world that's more built on freelancers, it's about knowing your own worth. So I'm just going to play a couple, just different clips from his podcast. Stick around to the end, and I'll share how much money he makes on yearly, which might blow your mind. He's got about 800,000 to 900,000 Instagram followers, so a good amount. But let's start off and talk about his podcast and the business model that he has on the podcast for making revenue.
I'll make a long story short. The CAA agency reached out to me because of a connection we had through Caitlin. And they were just like, hey, there's this new network that's blowing up. And I know you're doing a lot in finance and business, and this could be a good fit. I don't know if you have thought about a podcast, but if you have the right idea, I think it could be a good fit. Pitch the idea. They pitched it to the network. We did the deal. The deal was a little different than 100K up front, right? It was just 70-30 split. So I get 70% of all the ad revenue that comes in. And what they said was probably sharing. You know what? I was going to say I'm sharing too much, but that's the whole thing is like, you're not sharing too much about the money. Then the thought that I thought, this is a rule for everyone, read your fucking contracts.
Yes.
I thought, in my understanding, it said to the company in a 30-page document, it said to the company, we will give $1,000. It had $1,000 administrative fee. Now, as a person in the contract, I'm not the company. I'm actually the lender. And so the $1,000 administration fee I thought was going to me. So I thought I could use that to bring on a guy like you, right, David? Come on board. Help me with some pre-production. Do a recap. I'll give you 500 of that 1,000. I'll give the other 500 to the booking guy. I'll give you guys a percentage of revenue too. I then quickly learned that $1,000 is actually goes to the network. So
first of all, that's a really big mistake he made. It's hard to get money in a podcast. Now his podcast is going to be doing fine. It's got 1,200 reviews already. I'm sure it'll pick up steam and get some decent sponsorships. But the fact that the first $1,000 that's made on every podcast episode at monthly goes straight to to Dear Media, that's like just not good. But you know, if the he's kind of got one of those deals, 70-30 split, where if the podcast does really well, he's making 70%, versus, as he talked about in previous episodes, the Clickbait podcast offered him $100,000 to just be a salaried employee. But if they were making $10 million, he would still get that $100,000. So, you know, you have to really decide, is it, you know, do you want the safety of the steady pay, or do you want to roll the dice and potentially make a ton of money? I'm going to play this preview that they have on their Reels, but I have to say, for Dear Media to be this new up-and-coming hot company, their YouTube channel is really not good. I mean, they've this recap of them that I'm doing is going to get 50 times the views. They don't have the video up yet, and whatever. They Dear Media, you got to work on your stuff. Don't call me. I'm doing too well on my own YouTube, but boy, you know, get your stuff together.
In being able to make $50,000.
So let me just restart this. This is just their teaser from what they're going to discuss in today's episode, and I'm just going to get you guys to the point a little bit faster.
Do you ever feel guilty in being able to make $50,000 on a post?
These are conversations we're uncomfortable to have. This is how we acquire business. This is how we grow.
Do you leverage 400 to 600K off your social and accounting?
I'm telling you what I do on social media. I'm telling you what I'm getting paid. And the answer is...
Oh, that was very loud. So let's go right back into this and play some more clips. Of course, we're going to share what he makes on the year, but you know, I got to give him a lot of credit because you can feel how nervous he is to share some of these numbers because you know he's got contracts and you know so a lot of contracts they don't want you to share what you're making, and usually in most cases it's probably a lot more than people think. All right, let's go and to hear him talk about debt.
Our family is like, do you have experience with debt? I know you must have.
Yeah, first of all, one of the things you said, David, and I'm not trying, that's why I love having you here, is like just being like the curious person and the voice of the viewer. But you said like, I want to go to the bad. And I think it's super important that everyone knows out there, like, and I'm not calling you out. I just want to put this out there. If you have debt, that's not bad. If you're in a tough financial position, I don't think it makes sense to look down on it because the biggest thing is like recognizing that where you're at is okay. No one is alone here. No one is alone. Americans right now have on average, every household has $7,000 of rolling credit card debt. $7,000 of rolling credit card debt. The average rate on that's like 17%. There's $1.7 trillion ballparking, but I do remember there was a point that credit card amount was up to probably in the $20,000 range.
Wow.
That dollar amount was, again, it was majority of like when I was making my payments, and I was fortunate enough that I used a 0% interest credit card that I just timed it right. And that was the thing. I was fucking freaking out if I ever lost my job. That was the one thing, is that put so much stress on my life though, to even be more check the box. While work was actually utilizing me a little bit because the edit was good. They were like, hey, go speak over here. There was an event.
So he was working in corporate banking and making a good amount of money, but also acquiring a decent amount of debt too. And as you mentioned, it's like it's hard to leave the security of a job. For me, I've been lucky with my YouTube channel that because of the pandemic, I lost all my other jobs. I lost everything. So I didn't really have a choice. Do I stick in a corporate world or do I come here? I've been fired from corporate worlds. I've been, working in freelance acting, stand-up comedy. So I've been on my own for a good bit here. But it's important to remember that there is a chance for you to leave a salaried position and actually do way better out on your own once you realize how much corporations are making, how much money is wasted in the middleman. When you run your own podcast or when you run your own business, there is a way higher shot at a profit margin, but there's also a risk that but there's a risk when you work for a corporation. A black swan event happens and all of a sudden you don't have a job anymore. So let's go to this. He talked about the double dip year. This is when he was still working in banking, but also getting into the influencing game after being on The Bachelor. And at some point, the critical mass reaches, and it's like the butterfly, that needs to break out of the cocoon. At some point, you have to say, all right, I got to quit the other things I'm doing because that's holding me back from future ventures.
I'm like a regional president, and they were kind of like leveraging it a little bit. So I was working, and then all of a sudden they decide Colton will be The Bachelor, and I'm like, go, like let's do this. So I immediately start like, boom, 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 give me deals. Like, let's do it. And so for about a year, I was working and then doing any influencing. And I refer to that year as like my double dip year.
Yeah, that was a crazy time in your life. I remember you trying, and you lived in Seattle too, and you're traveling like across country for all these things too. Is nuts.
Now, on a side note, just me personally, and if you don't like me interrupting this, just go watch the whole thing. Go listen to the whole thing. My channel is about recapping and interjecting here. But I remember when I wanted to move to New York City, I had just got into Screen Actors Guild. I wanted to move to New York City, but I was so afraid of all of the overhead costs of living in the city. I didn't think I could make it happen. So I lived in Rhode Island, where my family is, 3.5 hour drive away. And I would commute into New York City for auditions and for like random gigs. And then eventually I realized, you know what? I'd be taking in my psyche, I'd be willing to accept more gigs if I was living there, if I lived 5 minutes away or 30 minutes on the train. So that I was doing a 7-hour round trip commute, which sounds crazy, but the things we'll do to pursue a life we want, it's like you'll do whatever. And that's what he was doing. He was double dipping. He was trying to get into this new game, but afraid to leave his old game, which is like a powerful place to be.
Also a headache because everything I did, my job was watching. My job would watch the time I would post. So I would post at like, 5:01 because technically it's after 5, even though I'm still doing work. So it was like super stressful because all eyes were watching both sides of it.
Yuck.
And honestly, it got to a point where the personal life of like sharing my personal stories with the like fake, phony, here's my corporate life front, which is like, perfect in a suit, which isn't really me, collided. And that's when it all blew up.
So
Good for him. Good for him. I mean, at some point, it's just like you're living a double life. At some point, it's just not going to work out. All right, let's go to Instagram rates at 41 minutes here. This is what you guys want to hear. How much are these guys making with their Instagram rates? Now, Jason's on the high end of how much Instagrammers can make because he has a clean image. He decides not to do certain, promotional things like for products that might lower your value, which, if you're going to be a brand, you just have to decide, am I going to be like take my channel, for example. I've had to make a conscious decision to try not to swear on my YouTube channel because I figured this out, and I didn't know this for the longest time, that on YouTube, they can hear what you're saying and they will lower your rate of income. They will lower how much they share with you if they deem you to be more of an edgy channel. So for me, it's like, all right, I guess we can find new ways to say bump that Harrison versus, whatever the other words may be. And that's just the way it is right now to work in a corporate world that's a little bit more network FCC compliant, even though they may not be specifically compliant with the FCC in like that's not the regulation. It's still the advertisers are the ones that rule it all. All right, so this is Instagram rates. Let's play this one. 41.30 here. There we go.
Again, this is me backed into, guys, listen to this. You hear this advice when you're backed into a corner, flip the switch. All right. Give me an over-under. What you getting? I'll give you an idea.
give me an idea. Like, what's the brand? What's the product? And then I'll guess. I'll guess the number. And
so his co-host is going to guess how much he makes, and he'll kind of agree that way. That's how we're going to get this information. He's not going to flat out tell us.
Real quick, we'll play this game. But a good point is like, if I'm deciding this stuff, I'm just like, who is the brand? How big is the brand? Is the brand organic? Does the brand align with what I want to do with finance? Is it a curveball? Is it not a curveball? What is the biggest question I will ask to a brand? Is wait, let me just get this out. Is what is your goal? Is the best thing I could get from a brand? Is their goal is awareness. They want people to know about it. The worst thing I could get from a brand, the only way we dictate success, Jason, is if you sell our product. Just give me over under for stories.
Well, you said it depends. But
so if I do a story, over under, a set of stories, 3 slides. Give me an over under.
3 slides, something that aligns with your brand that you believe in. 3 stories. They're going to go up 15 seconds each. Over under. I am guessing that you charge.
And you're now using all this
$3,000.
Over.
$5,000.
Over.
What fuck? $7,000.
Ideally over.
Okay, so we're in the $7,000 range.
Over.
For some stories. Over. $10,000.
If I got, wow, you're a good interview, man. I feel like I'm back.
It's $12,500. That's your rate. 3 stories.
All right, we're somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know.
$12,000. So that means he'll probably take $8,000 to $10,000 to do 3 Instagram stories. Hey, look, and people are going to comment, oh, it must be nice. This is what happens when you build equity. No matter how it is you get those followers, if you've got a loyal following, giddy up, folks.
Depends on it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean.
Well, you do know. You have rates. You said you have rates.
But it all changed. Fuck this. Wow. Curious Canadians fire. This is great. Yeah. I mean, listen, I have a podcast. Yeah. I would say, wow, this is the problem with the world. I'm so uncomfortable talking about this because I feel like when I tell people I'm going to get judged, I feel like people are going to be like, you're so fucking lucky you stepped into this. I got to
cut you off.
I have some people are going to be like, you're an idiot. And then I have some brands will be like, I won't work with you anymore. So that's insane. Like that's what goes through my head.
But it's educational. At the end of the day, it's educational.
I don't want to lose that money. So therefore I'm not going to talk minimum of like that 6 to 10 range.
Okay.
6 to 10,000. That's his minimum.
6 to 10 range. That's no slight. And it's like you said, it's a brand you want to work with. So that's
now. They mentioned in the podcast, his co-host is a hockey coach who makes $50,000 a year, which has to be tough because they're good friends. It has to be tough to find out your friend makes so much money and you're out there being like, I work really hard to make a couple, $20, $30 an hour, and he's banging out $6,000 to $10,000 a post. But what we have to remember is for every advertisement that Jason does, you'll lose some following. You'll lose some clout. So you can't just do all advertising. You have to be like, all right, I'm going to throw an advertisement in once every 3 days. You know, like you see Becca Martinez, she's got a big following. She'll warn her followers, hey, the next 10 slides are going to be advertising. And she probably doesn't, I'm assuming she doesn't make as much because she does so many advertisings that I have to assume that they're not valued as high. But you have to imagine she's probably making a killing with her following in her advertising, especially knowing her demographics like moms. Moms are a great demographic to advertise to. Moms and women in households have a lot of purchasing power. They make most of the financial decisions.
Let me put this out there. You do an ad.
Looking
it
at you,
decreases like people know who wants to watch TV and see a commercial, who wants to listen to the radio and see commercial, right? So you do a brand and that kills engagement. Those things that are important. It kills. People are like, if the brand especially isn't authentic to who you are, people see through it. You get nasty DMs. You get friends that make fun of you, which is whatever. Like, I'm not sitting here asking to be a victim like sob story, but I'm also telling you the other side of it. Yeah, it's like a TV show, right? I guess like if you have a TV show that's 90% ads and 10% content, who the fuck's gonna watch it?
So what do you charge for your posts? Is it like give me an X factor? Like it's a 3.5X, 4X, 5X?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. The total impressions made in a post versus story is astronomically different. So therefore, as a business owner of your Instagram, you have to be aware of that. And we just talked about it, right? Like imagine you have commercials from a TV show. Imagine like you have a sponsor that's literally just like, it's almost like the head of the TV show the whole time. Like the whole thing's in it the whole time, right? So right now we're at Encore Casino in Boston. Imagine this whole podcast right in the left corner, Encore Casino, like the whole time. And then ads, all Encore, all Encore. And now I'm giving Encore a plug and not getting paid for it. And my point in saying that is you have to better price, knowing that the impressions of that post are astronomically greater. So therefore, anybody that's not charging, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, a minimum of 2X of their stories should have a reason for why. That's all. They should be able to justify, oh, I like the brand, I like the message, there's no disc, they're like, have a reason.
All right, here's a deep.
All right, so that's it. He says 2X. That means if he charges $6,000 to $10,000 for his Instagram stories, he's talking 12 to 20,000, maybe more for a post. That's pretty good money there. I wonder how long you have to leave the post up. All right, so let's go to this. This actually is a great question right here.
Do you feel guilty ever with being an influencer and making money that, would change people's lives to post on your Instagram?
Wow. That is such a deep question.
I mean, as we talked about, like, I love what I do for a living. I'm a hockey coach. This is my absolute dream job. I make $50,000 a year. I hear the Joe episode with you, and I'm thinking like, am I missing something? Like, that's just the vulnerability in me. Mm-hmm. You relate to us because we're your friends, and I can see that's why you're squirming on the screen right now, because you're basically talking to me, your friends, right?
Yeah.
So, do you ever feel guilty for taking the money when you've worked so hard as a corporate banker and you understand the world of how hard it is to make a dollar, in being able to make $50,000 on a post, or $30,000 or $25,000 on a post on your Instagram?
It's a great question. Here's what my response would be. All right, I'm going to get a little deep here. Corporations have existed. Spend tons of money on marketing and advertising. And if I'm a businessman and I am on the board of those companies, I am sitting there every day, spend this money. This is how we acquire business. This is how we grow. But the takeaway from being on both sides of that is, how do we become better consumers to recognize this? I'm telling you what I do on social media. I'm telling you what I'm getting paid. I'm telling you how it works. But companies have to pay for new clients, and companies should always pay for new clients. And companies should be forced by competition to put the best product out there, so that this isn't like a win-lose thing. This is a win-win thing. You're getting a product, you're getting a brand that can change your life regardless of what it is. Like those added million zeros that people put out there to bear of what you're being positioned to understand what you're buying, how you're buying it.
All right, so that's a long answer. So he says, he feels kind of a certain way, but he understands the business model. All right, a couple more clips and then we're done here. About to play the sponsorship he turned down and then his net worth from doing influencing. So let's jump right into this. I said 59.28. So 1 second here. There we go.
See how I put that back on you?
Yes. Define millionaire. As a voice of the viewer, a millionaire is someone who makes more than $1 million a year.
That's definitely not what a millionaire is, by the way. Thing called, I'm blanking out. So it's a vape. It's a vape
like
pen.
a
Juul. I was off. I told you about this deal. Didn't I tell you about this deal?
Yes.
In 2018. Do you remember I told you about this deal?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think so.
So this, are you talking about the 75? That's the deal.
Right when you got off the show.
Just got off the show. Don't know much about this. Trying to figure out this world, busting my balls, hating my life as corporate soldier the last 10 years. And I got offered $75,000 from Juul, the vape company. And they told me it was like an experience thing. You could do any experience you wanted, a bucket list thing. They'll pay for it, skydiving, whatever. And you don't even have to smoke the Juul, but like they will incorporate that it's a Juul ad. And I'm thinking, all I got to do is like do anything I want in my life. $75K. That's a lot of money.
You called us. You're like, good boys. I need.
Do you
some
remember
advice.
that?
I'll do it.
I think we were like at first, like 75K.
Yeah,
like
I
do
don't
it.
want.
All you got to do is put one post up. Do it. What do you mean? Do it.
But I ended up pulling the plug on it, and that 100%. Was a time. Right now, if you said, hey, I'll give you $75K for Juul, I'd laugh. Like, not because of the money, guys. I would laugh because I would never knowing what I know now, I would never do it. You couldn't pay me $10 million. If someone paid me $10 million right now to do a Juul ad, I would say no. Swear to God. Because of the impact that could have on kids and kids and what, and maybe it would, like that is why.
All right, so there's some ethical reasons to not do certain ads, but also, it'll dilute your brand for future opportunities if you've done that. I mean, that's just the way it works. All right, one more clip here, 57.55. This is him talking about his net worth. They ask about his net worth. Wait, this is the big one that people are always worried to talk about here. So let's hear what they have to say.
Maybe in the world, it's crazy.
I mean, they'd be a whole episode.
It's crazy, dude. How they think about that. Like, it's crazy.
Over under, I've read an article here, so I'm interested in your take. Over under your net worth being $600,000.
Anyone that Googles someone's net worth, I tell like anyone out there, if you say something net worth, I promise you, I will bet you every penny I have that it's wrong. No one on the internet knows your net worth. Even if you're like a publicly traded company where all that information is available, no one knows. It's all fugazi. That is over. My net worth's over that.
Well,
I feel like a douchebag.
I'm not surprised because my
over 600,000. That's what they were saying.
Last question is how we're going to end because I had to get to
which
it.
Makes
Those
sense.
have been waiting for this guy. Joe said if Jason was doing his social media right, he would make 400 to 600K in a calendar year off of social. So, Jason Tartick, the question that I've been waiting for as your friend, the question that the people at home have been waiting for, the thing that you teased out for this episode. Was Joe Joey Viral from Viral Nation right? Do you leverage 400 to 600K off your social in the calendar year?
I don't know why I get so nervous about this. Like this is I'm glad I'm in the hot seat because I know how it all works. But let's just say, so it's 2021. I know exactly where I am to this year. And the answer is over.
So he's making over $600,000 a year on his social media game. Not bad at all. And of course, there's a lot of room to grow. They're going to be doing their wedding. And if he's making $600,000, let's just go to Jason here. So if Jason is making $600,000, he's got 864,000 followers. Let's see what Caitlin's got. Caitlin Bristow's probably got double that, right? So let's see what Caitlin said. She's over double. Let's say she's making at least $1 to $2 million a year on her social media. Probably more because the Off the Vine podcast is even bigger, and I think she's just a bigger brand in general than he is. So that's what I like to call a power couple, folks. And transition into my Patreon. If you want to join my Patreon, I've got 62 Patreon members. We're up to 70, but on June 1st, on the new month, we always lose a couple. So let's get a couple more. I've got live streams, weekly extra private episodes. I share some more personal information. I'm sharing some behind the scenes stand-up comedy that I've been doing. If you guys want to see the material I've been working on post-pandemic, let me know. That's all there. You guys can go check all that out. And yeah, that's it. That's the podcast. Definitely go check out his full episode there. It is fascinating, but it's a little complicated in the weeds there because there's a lot to talk about. He got some hate from people on Reddit that were saying, "Oh, it was a boring episode because he was hesitant to share all the numbers." I think because of his hesitancy, you get to see how hard it is for people to share. Like if Jason called me up today and said, "Dave, come on my podcast and talk about the money you're making on your YouTube," I would be hesitant to share that because when you're making money, people look at you in a certain way that they start to become either skeptical of what you do or they see you in a different light. And we have to understand that people on Instagram that I'm following, of course, they're going to monetize that. And people go, "Oh, it must be nice to be an influencer." These people work very hard. It's a very hard gig to put things together. I mean, we did this mattress. We got a free mattress. So, Dean got paid 10 grand to do his free mattress thing. We just got the free mattress. We had to go back and forth multiple times with the edit. It actually took days worth of work. So, there's no such thing as a free lunch is the point. And while this is a job, if people out there say, "Oh, it must be nice to become an influencer," find out what you love in life. Become an expert on that. Work on your pitch and start sharing that with the world. And as you acquire a following, maybe it's tech, cameras, maybe it's breastfeeding pumps. It could literally be whatever it is that you love to talk about. Figure out what that is and figure out a way to monetize it. There's probably more money to be made by influencing than whatever job you'll make working for somebody else's dreams. As the quote goes, don't rent out your time. And I'm glad that Jason's starting to share all this. All right, let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Love to hear from you guys. And also, please check out the Patreon if you want. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. There'll be a link in the description below. Bye, guys.